Hello everyone! My name is Jen. I'm the teen librarian here at the Grandview Heights Public Library. I am here today with our very last virtual book talk of the spring. We've been doing them since last summer when y'all couldn't come into the library, and I know a lot of people were having a hard time with not having access to the librarians to give book recommendations, so we wanted to all jump on here and do that. So now that the library is open, I think that we have a lot of people coming in now to get these book recommendations and talk about what they're looking to read. And of course, if you're not comfortable coming in, or even if you are and you just don't have the time, you can always give us a call and we can always talk with you about book recommendations over the phone or email. You can go to our website and there's a Next Great Reads form that you can fill out to get help on book recommendations. And it's a part of our job that we love. So definitely, if you think you'd like some in-person help or live help, you can definitely still get it. So I have a couple of things from our teen area today. That's for grades 7 through 12. And a couple of books from our tween area for grades 4 through 6. And these are all found in the area of the library that we call the basement. That's where you usually find me after school when the library is open for hanging out and playing video games and doing homework and doing some programs and things like that, which hopefully we will be soon. I'm hoping that next school year will be closer to normal than this school year was. So we'll get on with the book recommendations. All right, starting with the book recommendations for grades 4 through 6. I'm going to start with a graphic memoir. If you have watched some other of my book talks, you'll know that I have a real weakness for graphic memoirs. I love them. I love them. So it's like a graphic novel, but instead of being fiction, it is nonfiction. So this is written by Shannon Hale. She is the author of a bunch of middle grade books that are pretty popular. And anyway, she came out with it's a duology. There's two of them. This is the first one. The second one is called Best Friends. This is set when Shannon is in, I believe, 5th grade, and it's just it's a really relatable story about friendships and how they sort of morph and evolve over time. Shannon finds herself, she's been really good friends with her friend who's Adrian. Her name totally escaped me for a second, for years, and then they're kind of getting into this territory where cliques are forming and people are sort of deciding to maybe be exclusive, and Shannon is having a lot of conflicting feelings about this. She's not comfortable with a lot of it. She wants to be friends with whoever she wants to be friends with, and that's not really working out well in the social atmosphere of school. So this is about that journey for her, and like I said, it's just really relatable. It feels good to kind of read something and know, like, okay, this some of the stuff that I experience is really common. So that is by Shannon Hale, Real Friends. The next book it's a graphic novel, not a graphic memoir, and this is actually based on a TV series. You may already be familiar with Steven Universe, and I wanted to let you all know that the Steven Universe has a bunch of graphic novels based on the show and the movie. So Steven Universe, he lives with a bunch of gems. They're aliens, and they look like humans. He's half gem, and he has some special powers. But it's really about, but the story is, he goes on adventures and things, but it's really about him sort of navigating life growing up. And, it's a really positive, very affirming and supportive and inclusive, show and graphic novel series. So it's just kind of a breath of fresh air, I think. So that is Steven Universe. This is the first one called Warp Tour. You don't need to read them in order, though. Okay, the next book I have is called Kikis Delivery Service. All right, so this was written by Eiko Kadono in 1985, and then Hayao Miyazaki made this book into a movie. So he also has done things that you may not have heard of Kiki's Delivery Service, but he also did My Neighbor Totoro and Ponyo, and he did he made Howl's Moving Castle, which is also a novel, into a movie as well, and he's done lots of other stuff. But this is Kiki's Delivery Service, and it is about a witch who actually she's a half witch, and so she when she turns 13, it's sort of customary for witches when they turn 13 to go spend a year in another town, sort of becoming part of the town, but also supporting the townspeople with their magic. And the only thing she can do is fly on a broom. She can't do anything else. So she's trying to sort of get with this crowd with this community who's sort of like, who is this witch? Why is she here? I don't want a new witch in town. And so it's again, I guess these are all kind of coming of age. So all just sort of about growing up during a time that's sort of a weird time for so far all these kids. This one was my favorite of the bunch that I read. So this is the series' Magisterium. This is called The Iron Trial by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. So Cassandra Clare wrote City of Bones. That's like her most well-known book. That's actually a teen series. It was also, I think, made into a movie and a TV show, like called Mortal Instruments, I think is what it was called. Yeah, because that's the name of the series. Anyway, her stuff is really great. I really like it. And Holly Black has also done she's done a lot of books about fairies, but not like Disney fairies, like the kind of fairies that are kind of conniving and not necessarily fairies you want to encounter. Those are the fairies that Holly Black writes about. So they got together and they wrote this series. And my daughter, who's 10, she said, "Mom, you should read this book. I think you'd like it." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, okay, I'll read it someday. Sure, it looks good." But it took me a while. And finally I read it and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I need the next book right now." It's so good. The whole story. So it starts 12 years ago, during something called the Cold Wars, and not the Cold Wars like what happened in our world in the 80s, but the Cold War with all of the Magisterium. So the Magisterium is actually a school, and the Callum he was born to magical parents, and his mom died. You find this out in the prologue. His mom died, but he survived, and so his dad came and found him and took him away, and he moved somewhere, I think North Carolina maybe, somewhere, and just stopped being a mage and just was a regular person. His kid was kind of a regular person going to regular school, and then when he was 12, he had to go through this test. Anyone with any kind of magical abilities has to go through this test. And then sometimes they're selected to train to become mages, and sometimes they're not. And Callum does a really bad job, but he still gets selected, and he doesn't really understand why. And then he finds out there's all this stuff that he didn't know, like stuff his dad didn't tell him, stuff his dad didn't know, and it's all sort of unfolds as he's learning how to control his magic. And his controlling his magic, I mean, that's a really great part of the story too. But all of the stuff, like, who is this guy, and who are these other people? And there's so much that is not what you think it is at the beginning of the book. So, The Iron Trial, first book in the Magisterium series. If you like fantasy, I highly, highly recommend it. It was really good. Okay, moving on to the teen stuff we have. I have 2 nonfictions and a fiction book. Both my nonfiction books one of them, the first one, is a graphic novel. This is called Wait, What? And it's a book about sort of puberty and adolescence. It says a comic book guide to relationships, bodies, and growing up. So it's pretty quick. You know, there's not, because it's graphic novel style or comic book style, it's not going to take long to read. And they really talk about a lot of different, they talk about gender identity, sexuality. It's more than just a, like it's perfectly normal, or it's not about the stork. You know, it's not just a step up from that maturity-wise. It's really very inclusive and comprehensive, despite its thin little size. But I mean, this is a good one. I liked this one, but I brought this up to point out that there are actually a lot of books on this subject, and they're really good. They're really, like I said, comprehensive. They're not just talking about sex and relationships. They're very current. They take a lot into consideration that was not in the books that I read growing up, the puberty books and things. And so anyway, the section is definitely worth checking out. There's a lot of good stuff out there these days. Next book is called 6 Super Skills for Executive Functioning. So this author, Lara Honos Webb, she has her PhD. She's a psychologist. She's written a bunch of books, it says on the back, about mostly about ADHD. But so I think that this book, I know, would be helpful to people who have ADHD. But there are some of us who just, maybe we don't have ADHD, but we could just use a little help learning, like, sort of tips and tricks and tools to sort of plan better and sort of learn time management. I honestly think this is great for anyone who, I mean, it could be used for adults. It's in our teen section, and the material is useful for kids younger than teen, but they do mention drugs and alcohol as ways of, obviously poor choices of ways to deal with stress and anxiety. So just because of that mention, it's the content is a little more mature, but a parent could totally read this and take the ideas and the tools from this to help their younger kiddo, their middle school kiddo or whatever. Yeah, there are these 6 skills, and they go in order. They kind of build on each other, and I thought it was really helpful to kind of read one section at a time and try to implement the strategies in it before moving on to the next one. So like 1 chapter a week or something, which is really manageable, especially because there's only 8 total chapters anyway, and it's not a big intimidating book. You know, it goes pretty fast. So I think this could be helpful to anyone who wants any kind of help with time management, planning, anything like that. And then my last book, this is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. Benjamin Sayens. He won, as you can see, this book cover has 4 different honors or medals on it, because it is really, really that good. It is so good. He has another one. I have not read it yet, but it's not a sequel, but it's just another novel, and it was also really well received. I loved this book. I thought it was wonderful. It's set in 1987 in Texas, El Paso. And so it's about 2 boys, Aristotle and Dante, and they, they're pretty different kids, but they also are kind of loners, and they meet at a pool one day, and they kind of hit it off. One of them's really outgoing. Aristotle is really outgoing, and Dante is not so much, but they still seem to click. And again, as the theme has kind of been for the fiction I've been talking about, the book is really, it's about growing up and it's coming of age. And it's a really great book about friendships and relationships with people that are different from you. And growing up in the 80s is kind of a neat book for me to read, because I wasn't as old as them in the 80s, but still I was alive. So anyway, I recommend this. I think I recommended it to my mom, and she loved it. I recommend this book all the time. It's just a really beautifully well done book, and it's a great story. And the ending is kind of surprising, or at least it was kind of surprising to me. It's not like a twist or anything like that. It just wasn't quite the book that I thought it was going to be, but in a really good way. I was very pleasantly surprised. All right, so that is my last book, and like I said, we're gonna take a break from these. We might bring them back in the fall. We might not. Hopefully, we will not be closed for this huge long length of time again. Hopefully coronavirus will continue to be on its way out, and we will continue to see you inside the building. So we're open now from 10 to 7, Monday through Thursday. And then we're open for slightly shorter hours, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but we are open for in-person browsing, and hopefully we'll get tables and chairs and things like that back soon, and hopefully there will be hangout time and space allowed. I'm really eager to see you all back in the library, so give us a call, or go to the website and use the contact us or the Next Great Read form if you need any help with books or anything else, and hopefully I'll see you soon in the library. All right, happy reading.